Almost obscured in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean are the tiny islands of Tarawa Atoll in Kiribati, one of the remotest countries in the world. Climate change is one of the most serious environmental problems threatening our planet, and no one is more worried about it than the people living on the small, scattered and isolated islands stretched across the southern Pacific Ocean. Many of the islands are low-lying coral atolls, barely above sea level. These could be the first victims of rising sea levels due to global warming. How long will it take for the lowest Pacific islands to disappear? Scientists cannot say with any certainty. Current scenarios predict sea levels increasing by up to 0.5 metre by the end of this century. While sea level rise may be a gradual process, South Tarawa is already experiencing other effects of climate change. South Tarawa is actually a series of small islands connected by man-made causeways, very exposed to erosion by the sea. At high tide, waves often wash over the coast, eroding the shore and undermining the main road. It does not take much erosion to have a big impact. In many places, the islands are just a few tens of metres wide. Less obvious to the eye is the danger of salt water contaminating South Tarawa's fragile freshwater source. On small coral islands, the groundwater aquifer is a lens of fresh water floating on seawater. The lens is highly vulnerable to seawater infiltrating through the highly porous coral sediments and sands into the freshwater. The level of salinity of the source of South Tarawa's piped water supply is constantly monitored. The groundwater under South Tarawa has already been severely degraded by man-made pollution. The fragile atoll environment has been overwhelmed by a rapidly growing population. Close to 40,000 people, almost half the population of Kiribati, now live on South Tarawa, without adequate sanitation, sewerage and waste disposal. Climate change is affecting the weather. Scientists believe that the massive quantities of greenhouse gases pumped into the atmosphere for the past 100 years have altered weather patterns faster than would have occurred naturally. The weather is becoming more unpredictable and extreme. Take, for example, the extraordinary weather events on the islands of Fiji in recent years. In 1997 and 98, the country of Fiji suffered its worst drought in 100 years, causing widespread crop failures and reducing water supplies.
Last year I have harvested 100 tons of cane, and this year I don't think I'll harvest any plant because of this big drought.
Tropical storms and cyclones, always a menace in the Pacific, appear to be getting more violent and destructive, causing greater damage as infrastructure and populations concentrate increasingly in urban areas. On higher volcanic islands like Fiji's Viti Levu, tropical storms and cyclones accompanied by heavy rains unleash flash floods. With widespread deforestation on the slopes, there is nothing to stop vast quantities of soil from running off the land. Overflowing rivers choked with mud and waste flow to the sea and onto the fringing reef, damaging these fragile ecosystems which surround and protect the island. The Coral Coast, a popular tourist destination in southern Viti Levu, has suffered near-fatal damage from runoff brought by storms and heavy rains. Now, a unique initiative by coastal communities, environmentalists and the tourist industry is trying to save the reef and protect water resources.
This was called the Coral Coast of Fiji. Now it's called the Dead Coral Coast. These are the most diverse systems in the world, and they are the most sensitive systems in the world. This is the inner reef, and it's in very bad shape. You can see it's got a little film of mud from the agricultural runoff. In the nearshore area, there were live corals up until very recently, and these corals have all been killed by the runoff, and there are just algal mats all over what used to be beautiful corals.
The runoff water, laden with silt, agricultural fertilizers, animal and human waste, flows onto the nearshore reef. The nutrients feed the growth of algae, which smother and kill the corals.
Every village has pit latrines or septic tanks, flush toilets, but it's all going into the water table. Whatever comes in has to go out, and it's coming out right onto these reefs.
Along the coast, situated among the 7 villages of the Duvu Tikina, is the Shangri-La Fijian Resort, one of the oldest and biggest on Viti Levu. Resorts like this have a major impact on the fragile ecology of the coast. They use more fresh water and generate more wastewater than all the villages around them.
People come to Shangri-La's Fijian Resort because of the environment. And if the environment degenerates or we don't take care of the environment, obviously that will certainly have a negative impact on their experience.
Most of the resorts in Fiji treat the sewage, but then they release it. So to release nutrient-rich water, whether from the laundry or whether from the treated sewage, to release it back into the environment is a bad idea because it causes just as much environmental damage.
To become a better neighbour to the villages around it, the resort has had to change the way it treats its waste. The solution was to construct artificial wetlands. The idea and design came from the Foundation for the Peoples of the South Pacific, a local NGO. This wetland project is the first fruit of a unique partnership between the resort, local villages, FSP and government. The project is designed to address the hotel's negative impact on the surrounding reefs and change the way people think about managing wastewater.
This is an artificial wetlands treatment system whereby plants are being used to treat wastewaters to a higher quality. Plants consume nutrients such as nitrates and phosphates naturally. The water hyacinth is the most common plant in the wetlands. Water hyacinth is used for handicraft, and there's other species in there such as kuta, which is used to prepare kuta mats. These are prized mats and very hard to find today. This wetland system basically consists of 3 lakes. The wastewater from the sewage treatment is pumped to the first lake, and water flows naturally under the influence of gravity into the second, and from the second into the third. It's known to remove nutrients of up to 75%.
As Secretary of the Duvu District Environment Committee, Nepote Senekal has supported the FSP initiatives from the beginning, working to avert the destruction of the reef at his doorstep and to develop a clean and reliable water supply system for their village. The population is growing. There are more children in the village now, and Nepote knows they must act to protect their future.
The sea and the land, they're actually connected, and most of the things that we do in the land will affect the way of life out there in the sea. And we found out that most of the problems that are causing the depletion of our marine resources are more land-based.
The problems of the reef start from the hills above the coast. Heavy rains wash the soil laced with chemical fertilizers into rivers and down into the sea. Forests were cleared to make way for the vast sugarcane farms developed during British rule. Sugarcane has been an important sector of Fiji's economy ever since.
Most of the soil that we have in our farms are going out into the sea if we don't follow up on the rules and regulations the government has given us, and plant a lot more bigger trees on the riverside so that they'll be able to hold the soil.
To reduce soil erosion, villagers are planting trees on the slopes of the watershed above the coral coast. FSP call their program From Ridge to Reef. Communities are encouraged to take a comprehensive approach to managing their environment. The objective, save the reef and protect village water sources. The damage already done to the reef has reached a critical point. Teams of volunteers from the coastal villages are working to restore the corals and bring back the fish on which much of their livelihood depends. Today they're removing an infestation of crown-of-thorns starfish which are killing the coral, or lassi.
They call the lassi here. Here, the lassi. They kill this one.
You can see the coral is dead here, the white part, and the brown part's still alive. So this coral can't grow any higher. So these corals are all in the process of dying. So what I'm going to try to do is take this off, and we'll plant these on the fish houses. Proper tools always help, but I forgot my hammer. So this is my hammer. Here it goes. So everything I take here is saving its life. And so what we're doing is we're rescuing these corals, and we're planting them in deeper water. And we're trying to segregate them according to species, so that when they spawn, the sperm cells and egg cells will find each other and the genes are reinforced. Is allowing the reef to give it a little bit of help so that the natural process of adapting to higher temperatures can occur. We're giving fish habitat by creating these fish houses. So we get more fish, more clams, more corals, and the tourists are very excited because it's just so beautiful.
Villagers are also replanting the once abundant mangrove trees which protect the reef. The coastal communities of Duvutekina are seeking a new balance. Working together with other stakeholders, they are changing the way they interact with the environment to better manage their water resources and save the reef, which provides food and livelihood for the people and protection for the island from the growing perils of climate change.